Okay, we are on chapter 8 this week. Welcome. So, we are talking all about group influence in this first part of the video lectures. We're going to be covering the first chapter, the first half of the chapter. So, first, we're going to describe what is a group, then, we will talk about social facilitation. After social facilitation, then we will talk about social loafing, and finally, we will close out this section on a conversation on de-individuation. So the key designation about group and it being defined is that the members interact. According to Myers, a pair of joggers can be a group, whereas a crowd of persons who may be standing at the bus stop outside a UB who have no interactions or no connections are not a group. So, excuse me, it's less about the size, but more about the context and the fact that they are interacting with and being influenced by. Different groups are going to function to meet different needs. Researchers dating back more than a century have noted that literally just knowing that someone else is present impacts our responses. Social facilitation is the tendency of us as persons to perform simple or well-learned tasks better when people are present. The irony is, though, that the same does not hold true for tasks that are more difficult, such that the presence of others causes us to bomb out and really do worse. In more current functionings, when you hear the word social facilitation, it's just usually to describe the process that occurs where our dominant or more likely response is going to be strengthened in the presence of others. So what we do well, we are going to do even better or just as well when people are around. And the research on this is fascinating. So please do go back to the text and do some reading on the discussion around it. I remember three major instances in my life, and it's been way more than that as it relates to public speaking and such. Even to something as simple as for the past two semesters as a new professor, I would have had to had my bosses, quote unquote, come in to observe me, right? But in particular, the one that I want you to think about is those instances in graduate school for me where three times I had to defend findings from research. One was thesis, one was candidacy, which we call the comprehensives, which was candidacy for the doctoral degree, and then the dissertation for the doctoral degree. If the crowd had been like the one that you see in the backdrop here, I would have been soaking wet from sweat. Like I would have sweat out my clothes. There would have been nothing cute about me. Um, I would have done it and I would have been fine. But as it relates to the size of the crowd, it would have significantly impacted my state. And so, what do we know about crowding? In the presence of many others, effects of others' presence increases with their number, such that the larger the crowd, the more aroused we become. Being in a crowd is going to also intensify positive or negative reactions and, in general, just enhances arousal. So, me defending, thankfully, our institution was small. The times that I did defend were odd times, so I think I may have had a maximum of about 10 people at my largest one, not including the committee members. So that was manageable for me, particularly because these are all defenses. So you are the persons on your committee are there specifically to challenge everything you say. Even though it's your research, your work, you know it well, they're still there to challenge. And up until that point, I'm still just a student. I'm not the expert. But had it been here, this would have been a completely different story. So just think of yourself and what it is that you do. Do you play the piano? Do you play another instrument? Do you dance? Do you sing? Do you public speak? Put yourself in that instance and the difference between you doing it in front of, let's say, 5 to 10 persons as compared to 100 persons. You may have a completely different experience as it relates to your level of nerves and speaking to arousal. Now we shift from describing what happened, but to now answering why. Why, when we are in front of others and we are confident in our abilities, that we do well, but in the same crowd, when we are uncertain of our skills, we do worse. The first explanation is really evaluation apprehension. This occurs when we get so concerned for how other persons are evaluating us, right? So we are distracted, or I should say the next one is that we get distracted. So we are spending time rather than us actually focusing on what it is that we're supposed to be doing, particularly when we are uncertain, we don't feel as confident in our skills or ability. And so now we are distracted, wondering, what are the other people who are with me doing? What are the people in the audience thinking? Oh, her face is like that. What does that mean? And so the distraction impacts performance. And then finally, whether we are being evaluated or distracted, just the mere presence of others. So just having somebody else there who is in our presence is going to impact our performance. So if I go back to the first day of class, I'm going to guess that more than 80% of you may have rolled your eyes, mumble under your breath, suck your teeth when I mentioned that there was going to be a group project. You didn't care to even know the nature of the project, but simply because, I should say not but simply because so many of you have been burned from social loafing. This is the tendency for people to exert less effort when they pool their efforts toward a common goal than when they are individually accountable. And so while social facilitation, which we would have just talked about, it speaks to our individual efforts being impacted by a group or the presence of others, social loafing speaks to the common goal being impeded by the presence of others. So as you would see here, the people in the white, their hands are down, but they're walking along, while the people in the blue are like sweating and grunting and carrying all of the load. And again, if you've been in any group situation, I'm sure you may have experienced this. Basically, what the research has shown is that when there are more persons present, people feel less compelled to put as much effort as they would have if it was done individually. Basically, you can't identify that I'm the weakest link in here, so I could just chill out. And interestingly enough, when it is easy for us to identify who is the person who is not functioning, people are less likely to pull their weight. When we see free riders, it's exactly what you think it is, which the term is used in academia but would have been mainstream. And it is just that people who benefit from the group but give little in return. So they are riding for free. And it's important to know that loafing is prolific. It's more than just your experiences now in college, more than just if you're doing tug of war, doing some physical task where it tends to occur as well, but it is across the spectrum, as the research would have seen. And the research on this is very, very interesting. But I don't want you to despair. All is not bleak. We have found circumstances under which loafing may be less likely. And this one here, the first one here, is not listed as a characteristic in the text, but it is important to loafing its group size. And so loafing is going to be less likely to occur in smaller groups. So one way to encourage equal participation is to keep group sizes small. Now, according to Myers, people in groups are going to loaf less when the task is challenging. So that is that it's difficult. So I'm going to see my participation as required and indispensable to success. Because at the end of the day, remember, the average person who's in a group is very much invested in the success or the good outcomes of the task or the project. They just may feel like, well, I ain't got to work as hard because I got smart people in the group. Y'all got this. Y'all can make sure it works and I can still get the point. So, okay, I could, not exert as much energy. When the reality is not the case, so that it seems like this thing is hard and I may actually be needed in order for us to pass or to get the grade or, to do well, then I'm going to put my best effort. Similarly, or not so similarly, but if incentives are present, that is, the reward for the task is great, people will continue to work hard even in a group and even in larger groups. Groups also going to have less loafers when the group members have identified with each other. So they're friends, they see themselves connected. They are part of the same cause, working together for something. They're, inextricably tied for this purpose. So I feel connected, committed to you. You're my friend, so I'm not going to let you down by not participating. So in a nutshell, cohesiveness is going to intensify our efforts even within the group. Now, according to Myers, group situations may cause people to lose self-awareness and the resulting loss of individuality and self-restraint. De-individuation is a loss of self-awareness and evaluation apprehension. Occurs in groups that foster responsiveness to group norms, whether that is good or bad. So the larger the group, the more its members lose self-awareness, and then they are more likely to commit atrocities. And it's not anything that they're walking out thinking about. So no one walks and says, oh, there are 100 of us, let's go and rob this person, or let's go and loot. No, it happens where we get caught up in the group. So again, our self-awareness is gone, because I look around, I look to the left and I look to the right, and I see another 50 persons who are, black skinned with natural hair or locks or braids or twists or something that resembles this, who are about my height, my shape, my size, same kind of similar facial features. And so us walking over into that parking lot and jumping up on the cars, no one's going to be able to be like, oh, that's Giovanna Jones there. They'll just be like, well, I just saw a group of persons. Maybe they were all female. They all look like college age students. Not saying that I look like a college age student, but I do look a little young. But anyway, I digress. But you understand what I'm saying. So what happens is that our attention then becomes focused on the situation rather than on ourselves. So looters in a mob become faceless. So that frees them to loot. And really what's happening is, if everybody is doing it, then we get that whole everyone is doing it attitude. And so we are like less likely to contribute our behavior, or contribute our behavior, I should say, to our own choices, but it's to the situation. So I wouldn't do this. I'm not that kind of person. I don't do that. But I mean, it was 10 of us or 50 of us, and if I had walked away, I may have been the one person who didn't get it, and everybody was there and everybody's doing it. So group size, we lose our sense of self in the larger the group. The other explanation of when de-individuation really occurs and people lose their sense of self is physical anonymity. Being anonymous makes one less self-conscious, more group-conscious, and more responsive to the cues that are present in the situation, whether it is negative or positive. So basically, when we are physically unable to be identified, we are less inhibited. We see this with social media and the freedoms that people feel to verbally assault, whether it's in writing and that kind of stuff, voice noting, and just become real bullies. In the research shown in figure 8.7 that's now on your screen, it's found that children are more likely to transgress by taking extra Halloween candy when they were in a group, anonymous, and especially when they were de-individuated by the combination of group immersion and anonymity. So put that in layman's terms. You put a child in a costume with some more people in costumes, and they are likely to steal. An excerpt from the text. All the brothers and sisters joined hands and chanted with increasing intensity, choo choo, choo choo, choo choo choo, choo choo choo, choo choo choo. Yeah, pow. That made us as a group as though in some strange way we had all experienced something important together. The power of the choo-choo frightened me, but it made me feel more comfortable, and there was something very relaxing about building up the energy and releasing it. So no, that is not from BAISS and Sackers, even though I am a proud Sacker. That is, interestingly enough, Zimbardo reported that, and this was one person from the Unification Church, which was one of the well-known cults that historically was interviewed. And so this final excuse me, instance of when people lose their self in groups is when activities occur, and you can imagine now why cults and other groups that may prey on people would institute certain signals and certain commonalities of activities, because you get caught up in it, you get distracted, you are a part of the group just like the person would have described, and so now you are more impulsive in your actions because your attention is shifted again. So everything is shifting. It's from me as an individual, and there is this usness and this protection within the usness or the group. Finally, according to Myers, group experiences that are going to diminish self-consciousness tend to disconnect our behavior from attitudes. Self-awareness is really the opposite of de-individuation. So those who are self-aware, by virtue of being placed in front of a mirror or on a TV camera, shown in research, increase self-control, and their actions more accurately align with their values. The spotlight is on you. You act as you want to be tracked. So people are watching. They know it's me. They can clearly see it's me. So I'm going to do as I want people to associate me by. On the other hand, lack of self-awareness or decreased self-awareness, decreased restraint, and results in actions that are responsive. Again, we're seeing this responsiveness to the situation rather than our personal values or even our thought processes in general. All right, so that is it for the first half of chapter 8. Stay tuned for the next one.